The NBA's unofficial trade season kicks off, and Miami is being mentioned as a potential destination for superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo. We break down the latest rumors and reporting, but is all this noise just setting Heat fans up for disappointment?
David, I don't know that I can handle more disappointment.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. Join the Cookie Gang, become an everydayer. That means subscribing, tuning in every day, Monday through Friday, and signing up for the Everydayer Club with the link in the show notes. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real GM Radio. I'm here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. We have a jam-packed show for you today. It is the start of NBA trade season. We'll explain what that means, plus talk about the latest about Giannis in a second. But let's just start right away. December 15th, David, it is the unofficial start of NBA trade season around the league because it's the day where most contracts that were signed over the course of the summer become eligible to get traded. So you have a huge percentage now of the league that becomes eligible to get traded, thereby making trades a lot easier, thereby making it the unofficial start of NBA trade season. Over the years, a lot of stuff hasn't necessarily happened on December 15th, right? This isn't the trade deadline, right? You don't expect a ton of movement, but I do think it's worth mentioning that last year, because of some new rules in the CBA, you're seeing teams start to make these trades a lot sooner, because if you get traded December 15th or right around this time, you actually can become re-eligible to get traded by the trade deadline based on some of the new rules, like what we saw with Dennis Schroeder going to Golden State last year. And then he was traded before the trade deadline in the Jimmy Butler deal. So trades can happen, and I think we will see stuff happen as soon as this week, maybe even by the end of the day, by the time people are maybe even hearing this. Like Chris Paul is the big name that's been out there, right? Like there's a lot of players that could be moved soon. The other reason why I think we're starting to see trades happen a little bit sooner in the season as opposed to all the way up at the deadline is because, hey, get the player on your team faster, and then you have that player for more of the season. And if you think this player is going to improve your team, well, that player is a lot more valuable for you in December on as opposed to, say, February on, right? Like if you can go get a good player, go get that good player now as opposed to waiting to the trade deadline when most of your season is over. Right now, it can still do something where it actually makes an impact on your season. So for all of that, I do think that this is why we're going to start talking about trades as early as this week in a very real way as opposed to just sort of the rumor mill stuff. But
Right. Yeah. It's all theoretical. Sorry, it's all theoretical up at this point, but you're right that this kind of kicks off the ability for a lot of teams to be able to unlock players that might not have been eligible, and now things can start to intensify where things might have been starting slowly as conversations or kind of general let's gauge level of interest sort of talks. Now it's like, okay, now this is a real discussion that can kind of start to slowly build over the next few days.
So let's start big picture, David. We don't even have to, like, we're going to put a pin in Giannis for a second because we have a lot to get to there. But just generally speaking, do you think the Heat have to make a move?
I'm torn. It's not an easy decision to make because I think we've seen that this group can be good, and we've seen the way they started off the season. We talked about how things have cooled off, a number of different factors leading there. And I don't know that there's a lot of interest to make a kind of small move, which is what I think the team might be more interested in doing. They don't have the superstar, and I don't know that that superstar becomes eligible. We'll talk about Giannis, like you said. That's a possibility. And yet, when you're looking at what the team does need, I would say probably the biggest area is maybe backup center, a quality, a big, somebody that can provide some minutes if either Bam or Kel'el Ware wind up losing time due to injury. So is a trade necessary? Yes, but I don't think there's the same kind of sense of urgency that we've seen in years past where teams with Jimmy Butler felt like more of a contender because we knew with Jimmy on the roster that he could raise his level of play during the playoffs, and you wanted to surround him with a competent and complementary star level player that could put you over the top in the Eastern Conference. I don't know that this group fits into that same categorization. I don't know that you view them necessarily as a contender, but by the same token, with things so wide open in the Eastern Conference, maybe shoring up weak spots becomes more of a priority. It's not necessarily about getting that whale, but about getting a smaller player. So I would say there are general discussions. I would say that there's interest in making trades, but I don't think there's a sense of urgency to do so.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting way to put it. Like, if you can go get the whale and you can go get it at something that makes sense, you go get the whale. That has nothing to do with needs. What we're talking about is, do the Heat need to make a move? And I think you're right. I think they need to have a backup center somewhere on the roster. Just another big man, another option there. I would also say maybe another shooter. Sure. I think that would be really useful off the bench. Now, it is worth mentioning that the Heat they can now sign a player to a prorated minimum and fit him under the luxury tax. So they don't necessarily have to go via trade to go and address those needs. But at the same time, as you and I have talked about a number of times, okay, cool, backup center. Who's the name that's available as a free agent that's making a difference on this team, right? They did the Precious Achiuwa experiment and decided, yeah, not really worth it. We don't think that he's going to make enough of an impact for us. I don't know, like we've talked about Alec Burks as a potential guy to come off the bench as a break glass in case of emergency type shooter. Maybe, right? Maybe they address one of those needs via free agency, but you know, I do think that there's something to be said about going out and just trading for a guy who might not be available as a free agent right now, going out and trading for that guy to give you more of just a better option there. So I think there's that. I would like to see this team, I don't know about make a move, but at least explore the move for even just, at least because we've got a proof of concept now, right? They want to play with this up-tempo pace. We kind of know who fits. We know some of the players who have struggled. The team has lost 4 straight games. Now, I don't think you lose 4 straight games and start shaking up the roster. I think that I don't know that that's the right way to approach things as a front office. And the Heat have been patient in the past, and I don't think they would do that. But because the East is the way it is, yeah, I do think that if you're the Heat, you kind of owe it to this team and this fan base to go look. Now, the interesting thing is, this is a team that entered the season ducking the luxury tax. They traded Haywood Highsmith in a move that made them worse. Those are the actions of a team that doesn't view themselves as a contender, right? If you view yourself as a contender, you're not making moves to make yourself worse. But since then, I think they've even 4-game losing streak notwithstanding, I think they've exceeded even their internal expectations of how good this team could be and whether or not they can be competitive in the East. And because of that, I do wonder if they push the chips in a little bit and maybe even explore going over the luxury tax.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would have to say no, because even the going over the tax, that wasn't something that they were looking to avoid that, even when maybe this group was viewed as maybe a better contender or more likely to be in contention status as they were over the last few seasons, and they still were trying to avoid having to pay anything unnecessarily. So yeah, I just don't see it. I can't see this team going and looking at this roster as good as they've been, and maybe as much as they've exceeded expectations going into the season. I don't know that you view this group and say, you know what, we have to lean all in to the point where we want to pay more money than we have to in order to improve this roster. I think there are avenues to make moves that could help this group without having to exceed the cap to do so.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that would be ideal if you could do that while staying under the luxury tax. But you're right? You only do it for the right player. You're not doing it for the third big man on the roster. You're not going over the luxury tax. That's not smart, right? You're not doing it to go get another break glass in case of emergency reserve shooter. But if you can go get that player who you think who legitimately moves the needle for you in the East, but it requires you to go over the luxury tax, I think you have to at least be open to it if you're the Miami Heat. So look, do the Heat have to make a move for the right player? I think you and I agree. It makes a lot of sense. Is that right player Giannis? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Wayfair. The holidays always show up faster than we expect, and if you're still putting together gifts, last-minute decor, or getting your home ready for guests, Wayfair has you covered. Whether you need a quick room refresh, new bedding, or those final seasonal touches, Wayfair makes it easy to get what you need fast. Wayfair truly is your one-stop shop for everything home, with decor, furniture, kitchen essentials, and gifts for every style and every budget, all delivered quickly and easily. They've got a huge selection. Whatever you're looking to improve, whether it's your kids' rooms or maybe trying to improve some of the holiday decor, or as people start to come and go through your house, you'll be able to find everything in one place. And it's easy to shop by style. It helps you pick the pieces that actually fit your home instead of having to guess what might fit. No massive delivery fees, no stress. It's the best way to get your home holiday ready without running around to different stores to do so. So get the last-minute hosting essentials, gifts for all your loved ones, and the decor to celebrate the holiday for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, and the momentum flips, maybe after a turnover. And FanDuel lets you jump into those moments with live spreads and money lines adjusting instantly. You can have player props update as guys start to heat up in the course of the game. You can even bet the next touchdown scorers, the drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked in to every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Heat with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonheat.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. It would make for a great Christmas present for somebody in your life, potentially, or something that you might want to ask for.
I've got a quick question before we jump into the superstar conversation here. When you look at the landscape of the Eastern Conference, and that's kind of where Miami is viewing themselves, right? It's within that context. What teams are clearly better than Miami? And because I would say you've got the top two teams in the East, and then you've got the field.
Who are the top two teams in the East?
It's Detroit, New York, right?
Okay.
I think that's pretty clear. Cleveland has struggled a little bit, but they've got some injury issues. Orlando, I don't know what to make of them. There's potential there, and there's fit, and there's issues there with that group that it makes it seem incomplete a little bit. And Boston, I think, is more of a mirage than anything else, although they've been very good. And, of course, they expect Jason Tatum to return earlier than expected. So maybe that's a possibility. But other than that, I don't know that any of the other teams in the field really stand out as much clearly better than Miami. So in that context, does that seem like Miami should or has to make a move in order to improve their roster, in order to challenge the Detroits and New York style teams in the East?
Has to make a move is strong language. I don't know that it necessarily is. Have to look for something that makes them a contender. Yes. Right. I do think, even that sounds obvious, I do think that's a difference versus where this team was going into the season, when it was making roster cuts basically and trying to establish a system. And nobody would ever say that the Heat went into the season expecting to lose, but I also don't think they expected them to be as strong as they were. For Kel'el Ware to make the leap that he's made, for Jaime Jaquez Jr. to have that bounce back season, for Norm Powell, frankly, to be as good as he's been for the price that they got him at. So, I think this team now, I don't think you can look at anybody in the East. I think the Knicks and the Pistons are the best teams in the Eastern Conference, not in any particular order. But they're clearly the top two teams in the East. And then everybody else is sort of in this big, mushy 6 or 7 team grouping where anybody can come out of it, will go on one hot streak during the year, and you might end up the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference. I think Boston is less mirage-y than you do. I think that there's legitimately good stuff happening there. And if they get Tatum back, I think we have to have some interesting conversations potentially about what the Celtics could do. But and they're also a live team to make a move potentially before the deadline with that Anthony Simons contract. But
Yeah.
to your point, though, like whether or not qualitatively you think you're better or worse, you're not scared of any of those teams. Even the Pistons or the Knicks. You're not scared of those teams. So if you're the Heat, you've got to look at some of those options. And if the Heat were to land Giannis and keep Bam and some of these other parts, that's a team that immediately soars to the top of the Eastern Conference. There's no question in my mind. Giannis is still the best player in the conference. If you have him, you are then scary. Heck, like if we saw the Bucks in the playoffs, you would be a little frightened just because they have Giannis. Not because they're coached by Doc Rivers and not because of anything else on that roster. But let's go to some of the latest reporting on this, David, because you've got Chris Haynes over the weekend saying that Giannis might want to go somewhere sunny, that even like a sunny market might trump being in a big market, like New York, for instance. You've got Sam Amick saying Monday morning that Miami is a team to watch for Giannis, including obviously the Knicks and maybe even potentially the Atlanta Hawks in that group. You've got a number of teams that have already registered interest in Giannis, obviously. But based on the reporting over the weekend, David, Miami being mentioned specifically by Sam Amick and then not so specifically by Chris Haynes, but when you say somewhere sunny, it doesn't take, it's LA or it's Miami. Those are the options, right? When you talk about sunny, those are the sunny markets that people talk about. Are you feeling better or worse about Miami's chances to land Giannis after the reporting from this weekend?
I don't know if it's either. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. Like my point of view on all this is that obviously Miami's interested. Like there's been interest for years. There's a shared connection there with Giannis's agent, Bam's agent, et cetera. Those things do matter. I also think that when you look at Miami's history of trade acquisitions, normally they operate so much more in the shadows that all this noise kind of scares me more than anything else. So, like I said, I think from Miami's perspective, yeah, there's no doubt that they want to get a Giannis. I think they would love to have a player of his caliber added to this roster to make the move that would put them finally in contention. I think that would propel them into a level of realistic and actual contention that they weren't even able to achieve with Jimmy Butler. As good as he was, and as incredible as his playoff play was, with Giannis on his roster, that shifts the mindset for this organization in a way that we haven't seen since the Big Three era, where they were like, you know what? We've got something here that we have to continue to build on. And then all the cap stuff and everything else goes out the door because you see this team and you go, what? Who cares about the Detroit Pistons going on whatever run they have or the Knicks doing what they have? We have a top 5 player, an MVP player. They haven't had that since LeBron James in 2013. Like, this is a completely different approach. But Miami tends to move so much more secretively that when people are starting to talk about Miami's interest, it kind of sets off a red flag for me that is it legitimate or is it just a smokescreen or is it somebody using Miami's name in order to kind of push either the Bucks or another organization to make a bigger move or throw in more for a potential deal for Giannis? Because that's how it tends to operate with Miami.
I hear what you're saying. But they're not doing it so blatantly the way that the Knicks have done it, right? The Knicks are, you ask any insider, and the Knicks is where, that's the first name that comes to mind. That's the first team that gets mentioned is Giannis would love to play for the Knicks. And maybe that's still true. But then you've got Chris Haynes kind of saying, he doesn't say Miami, he just says somewhere sunny. And then Sam Amick just throws in, they don't even talk about Miami at all. When, on the podcast Sam Amick mentioned, he just goes, and by the way, Miami is another name to watch. That is sort of operating in the shadows a little bit because they're not out here like these other teams having these huge, big conversations about it. And maybe it's just people connecting dots and not actually hearing anything, which I do think tends to happen with the Miami Heat. I would also say in terms of the Kevin Durant stuff, it only felt like locally we were pushing Miami as an option, and it never felt like anybody nationally was talking about Miami as an option for Kevin Durant until Kevin Durant got traded to Houston. And then all the reporting came out of what Miami was not willing to offer for Kevin Durant. So I hear where you're at, but I would still prefer the Heat to be mentioned even a little bit than not mentioned at all. And maybe I'm wrong there. But it does feel like look, I think a lot of this is dot connecting, though, too, because Giannis's contract is such that not every team could trade for him. You'd have to understand that if you trade for Giannis, you'd have to know that he would sign an extension with you. The connection between Bam's agent and Giannis's agent is a very important thing in all of this. I don't even know how much reporting necessarily needs to be. Plus, it's freaking Giannis. Like, I don't know how much. Yeah, of course the Heat are interested. If you hear, by the way, I've got intel that the Heat are interested in Giannis, that is the fakest report you'll hear. Because of course they are. Because it's freaking Giannis.
29 teams are interested in Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Well, apparently not San Antonio, Houston, or Oklahoma City, according to Mark Stein. But yes, all the other teams that are not true blue contenders who have a legitimate chance to win it all this year or in the next 5 years, all of those teams are looking for that player to put them into that tier, and Giannis is that guy.
What's the rumor on San Antonio's level of interest? Like, why aren't they interested? Because
they've got Victor Wembanyama, and they would have to include one of Dylan Harper or Stephon Castle, and I guess they don't want to do that. But also, like, that's their posturing right now. Who knows, right? Like, who knows what they'd end up doing? I really hope Giannis does not end up in San Antonio for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But I also want Victor Wembanyama to just have his own team over there. But, like, maybe they don't think that Giannis would want to re-sign there. Maybe Giannis wants his own team, doesn't want to go to Wemby's team. I don't know.
There's sun in San Antonio, right? I mean, maybe it's not.
But like I said, that's not what anybody. Good old sunny San Antonio. Like, that's not
sunny Orlando. I mean, yeah, I think there's lots of. Yeah, can they package something around Franz Wagner in order to pick up Giannis? I don't know. Like, a lot of it just feels like noise. It's hard to differentiate what is and what isn't. Yeah, I think the overall point of view though is Miami would be insane not to consider the possibility of adding Giannis, and so I guess it boils down to: is Giannis interested in Miami? I think that's a pretty positive yes. I think he would love to join a proven team, a team with a solid, stable front office.
How many teams on Giannis's list of preferred destinations? How many locations or how many cities are on that list until you hit Miami? Assuming New York is at the top. The New York Knicks are at the top of that list. Let's just assume that.
Why New York at the top?
Because that's the team that we keep mentioning. So let's just put them on the top just for this. How many?
It never works out that way. But it never works out that way. It's like, oh, New York was going to get Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. How does that work out?
It's very true. But that was still on Durant and Kyrie to make that decision. Okay, let's assume the Knicks are on the list. Maybe they're not on top, but let's assume they're on the list because those conversations did happen over the summer. So they are on the list. Who else is on the list until you get to Miami? Do you get to 3 other cities before you get to Miami? I don't think you do, right?
I don't think you get to any. Like,
you think it's just
Miami
LA?
Seems like the team was whomst in LA.
That's true, right? Like, if you're Giannis, you're looking at that Clipper situation. You're like, that doesn't seem like an super great place to go. And then if you're looking at the Lakers, it's they've got LeBron and Luka. They have no room for me there. So, and Austin Reeves. So it's, you might be right. Look, let's. There's some reason for optimism here. However, is this just all setting us up for disappointment ultimately in the end? Again, we'll talk about that next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Rougiette. Let's be real, making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress, or I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ease, designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rougiette makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly and straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit rugiet.com/LockedOnBA, and you can get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnNBA. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNBA so they know we sent you. Rougiette. Stop making excuses and start making moves. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making us your first listen every day here at Locked On Heat. The best way to support the show, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on your favorite podcast app. In terms of reasons to believe in Miami as a potential Giannis landing spot, you mentioned the fact that it's a stable organization, right? The track record for maximizing superstars, all of that stuff. The location, the sunny location, the lack of income tax. You think about all of that. Big-ish market in a place that even put somebody like LeBron James and Jimmy Butler on another level nationally. I think that matters, especially when you're coming from a place like Milwaukee. No offense to Milwaukee, but Miami is just at a different stratosphere in terms of market. It's not New York, it's not LA, but it's bigger than Milwaukee. So yes, you've got all the things, all the reasons why Miami is always on these lists, right? Whether it's for Kevin Durant or whoever it is. Sunny location, NBA players love Miami. There's no secret there. Doesn't matter from what country you're from, you love being in Miami. And then the track record for maximizing superstars, the track record of success for the organization. It's the reason why Miami is always on these lists. But there's a new reason why Miami, I think, could be on a list, and that's because of the way they play now, the new up-tempo style of play. Specifically for a player like Giannis, that should be very enticing to him. See, he can picture himself in this tempo, playing for Eric Spoelstra. That is just another selling point that the Miami Heat have. But at the same time, David, to your point, we've been down this road before. Over and over and over again. Do you think this is just setting us up for disappointment right now? Again, will you allow yourself to hit the level of optimism that maybe you've even been in the past where, hey, we really got a good chance at this guy? Like, will you even let yourself explore that and think about that and daydream about that? Or are you just going to shut this down right away?
I'm going to shut it down right away. I can't. Damian Lillard, I think those talks broke me because I was perhaps alongside you and just us on this podcast in general. I think we were so assured that it was going to be a done deal. Like all the reporting, all the talk, all the conversations, like people we knew, everybody we talked to, oh, it's a done deal. It's this close. It's all going to happen. And there was real belief there. And the way that it had worked out so perfectly with Dame saying, you know what, this is a team I want to play for. Why wouldn't he? And so while Portland fans and even some Portland media members were crying, oh, we don't want what Miami has to offer, blah, blah, blah. It felt like it was just destined to work out that way. And then at the last second, of course, he goes to Milwaukee, and that was a disastrous move. But I think that whole buildup of us thinking that Dame was almost on a plane to Miami, I thought it was just so destined to happen. And when it didn't, I can't believe it anymore. So right now, I'm taking everything with a huge grain of salt approach. Like, yeah, there's interest. I think Giannis would love to play here. I think Miami is the best option for Giannis necessarily. And at the same time, it all boils down to whatever Milwaukee might be interested in and looking for in kind of a return package for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I don't know that Miami has to offer it. I don't know that any other team can put together a collection of assets better than what Miami has to offer. But ultimately, it comes down to their preferred wish list, and whether or not Miami can approximate what it is that they're looking for. So I don't know. Like, I believe it. Like, to me, if you ask me, will Giannis play in Miami? I will say no right now.
So the one difference I would point out between these conversations and something about the Kevin Durant conversations is who knows if the Suns would have picked the Heat package over the Rockets package that they ultimately landed on. But the reporting after all the Kevin Durant stuff was that the Heat just weren't willing to include these things. They drew the line at Kel'el Ware. They didn't really want to include Jaime Jaquez Jr. or Nikola Jovic alongside Kel'el Ware.
Right. They
stopped themselves short. For Giannis, as we've talked about, there's no stopping until you get to Bam. You figure out the contracts and the way it works, but it's all the first round picks that we can offer, and it's everything else. It's just, you get all of it. Whatever you want, if it lands Giannis. I don't think that there's a stop point until you hit Bam. And you got to make sure that the roster makes a little bit of sense afterwards, right? Like, is it Norm Powell and Tyler Herro? Probably not. You know what I mean? But that's kind of where I think the biggest difference is with Giannis is that this is the one time you do go all in. And it always felt like in the past, Miami was trying to pull the Jimmy Butler trade 2.0, where they could go get the superstar player for a fraction of the price. They have very rarely gone all in. But they went all in twice in franchise history. They went all in for Shaq, and they went all in for LeBron in the way that they basically wasted two of Dwayne Wade's best seasons. But they said, you know what, we're going to go all in. We're going to do everything we got to do to maintain our cap space and flexibility to make sure we have a chance at LeBron in the summer of 2010 and Chris Bosh and to re-sign Dwayne Wade, which they did. Giannis is that level. Giannis is that level where you say that's the guy that's worth going all in for. So who knows if Miami will go all in, but I'm just saying that that's the guy you do go all in for.
Totally agree there. What's the price? I hate using the verbiage, but what's the total price tag? What's the package? Is it Tyler, Kel'el, Jaime, picks?
Yep. And one other contract.
Rich?
No.
Is that too rich? No, it's
so.
not.
Not for Giannis, dude.
I'd hate to lose Jaime's spark of the bench. I'd hate to lose Tyler's production.
I hate to lose Kel'el's upside. I hate to lose all of it. But it's Giannis. You got to spend big to make big, right? Like scared money don't make money. You got to go all to get the guy. You got to go for it.
What's the window with Norm Powell, Bam, and Giannis, and whatever else is left on the roster?
So you would give Powell the extension, I would imagine, after that. With Giannis at 30, 31 years old, Bam, the window's obviously now, and I think over the next
4 years.
3 or 4 years. Yeah. But that's as long as windows last in today's NBA. What windows are going further than that outside of Oklahoma City? And even Oklahoma City, we just assume it. But we also assume that the Warriors are going to win 8 straight championships, and they only won 2 with Kevin Durant. So, you think it's going to last forever. We thought the big 3 was going to last forever, not 6, not 7. They got 2 championships out of it. So you never know how this is going to work out. All you could do is try to maximize your window right now. And as good as the Heat are, I don't think that they're a championship team now. I think they're really fun. And if, by the way, they don't land Giannis, I don't know how disappointed I would be because I'm still having fun with this group. Would it be more disappointing and we'll end on this question, David. Would it be more disappointing for the Heat not to get Giannis or for the Knicks to get Giannis?
Ooh. Yeah, I'd say for the Knicks to get Giannis. Like any team in the East that gets Giannis other than Miami, that would be upsetting. Like if he goes out west, it's like whatever. You see him twice a year, and that's a bloodbath anyway, the Oklahoma City and Denver being what they are. If it's a team in the East and then that strengthens the Knicks' chances, no, I see a lot of Jose from Kendall episodes in my future talking about that move. So
yeah, I'd have to agree. That'll do it for us today. Thanks for tuning in to Locked On Heat. Make sure you subscribe, follow Locked On Heat so you get all the latest episodes. Find us on Twitter and on Instagram on Locked On Heat. Did Locked On Heat make your Spotify Wrapped? Prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform and we'll drop you a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord. And you can do it by posting your Spotify Wrapped of Locked On Heat for a free month. For those of you on video, we send you over to our first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On NBA Game Night and Locked On NBA Daily.